Welcome to Rainy Day Rabbit Holes,
a uniquely Pacific Northwest podcast.
I'm Shea.
And I'm Jody.
Let's fall down the rabbit hole. Hey, you know what? I think we should take that again.
All right, I do too.
Okay, all right. Welcome to Rainy Day Rabbit Holes,
a uniquely Pacific Northwest podcast.
I'm Shea.
And I'm Jody.
I'm Keith.
And I'm Rich.
Let's fall down the rabbit hole.
I think I said that wrong.
Somebody said go. I heard a go.
I think that was me.
All right, we're keeping that tape. All right. Today, we are talking about the movie Singles. We didn't even practice that.
That was unplanned. That's how good we are now.
I'm glad they didn't ask us to do that.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here at Rainy Day Rabbit Holes
Podcast.
I know, and that sounded like I was introducing
a boxer or something.
Yeah, a WWE.
Yeah, something.
And in this corner, we've got Jody.
And she'll be taking on, I don't know, Keith.
What? Well, okay, so we have a very special episode for everyone today. We have dragged our husbands along. Woo!
Totally dragged.
Oh, do I still have this going on? Hold on. Not wrong one. Hold on, not that one. Not that one.
That's what we want to hear.
I like that one. No, this is the one I was looking for.
There we go, yeah.
Yeah, all right. Oh, didn't mean to do it again. Today we have with us our own husbands. We have my husband, Rich. Say hi, Rich.
Hi, Rich.
I knew I was going to do that. I knew it.
And then we have Jody's husband, Keith. Say hi, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
So the reason we have them here with us today is because they both love the movie Singles.
Yes. So we decided together that we wanted to do our first movie review, a movie that was filmed in very Seattle-centric or Northwest-centric, but this one is Seattle-centric. And when I said I was going to watch this movie for the podcast, my husband, Keith, just went crazy knowing all the details behind it. Super fan of the grunge scene.
Yeah, same over here.
Which plays heavily into this movie. So I thought, Shea, is Rich as into this movie as I am? Because they have the same passion when it comes to the music. And she said, yeah. So we discussed it and we kind of wrangled them into this.
We cajoled
We
them.
asked them, but then didn't give them really an opportunity to say no. And here we are on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So tell us, guys, Keith, what's your relationship with this movie? Do you remember when you first saw this movie? Can you scrape that out of your brain?
No, there's way too many things that have gone on since then. I mean, I just remember the time frame. I don't remember the exact moment I saw it or anything like that. I just remember the time frame of it. And at the time, our age, because it's like literally our age group, and from the movie itself was set in like a lot of the neighborhoods that we're from and people that we actually knew. And so it's kind of fun to see the scene kind of play out. When the scene actually exploded, we lived in Hawaii, and I would get phone calls from my friends back here that would be like, hey, do you know this guy? Do you remember this? Do you remember that? And I'd be like, no. And then, so it was always kind of fun. And then they would send me the CDs and I go, holy crap. And ironically, and Rich is going to laugh about this, back then, when the first time I heard STP, I actually thought they were probably the better of the bands.
STP being Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah, they're SoCal. It's so gross I have to say that. But anyway.
I actually, when I hear grunge, Stone Temple Pilots is probably my favorite too.
Yeah. So what about you, Rich? Do you remember where you were at in your life when you first saw this movie?
Well, unlike Keith, I wasn't living here. So I was in Orange County, and it was a completely different scene there.
I mean,
Yeah,
Orange
you're not
County,
from
Southern
here.
California, not Orange County, New York.
Correct.
You're the one of us of this four that isn't born and raised here in the Northwest.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So early 90s, I feel like Southern California still had more hair metal going on.
Mm.
But I think Keith and I were both 21 in 92.
Mhm.
So it kind of, at least for me, I was in college still. So it kind of captured a moment in time for me.
Yeah,
even
so
though
you
I wasn't up
related.
here.
You
Absolutely.
related. Keith was 21 but had 2 kids by that time. That's one thing I don't relate to this movie very well with is
Right.
dating as an adult.
Also me, because in 92 I was 13.
All right. You're
Yeah.
cut. You're cut.
Yeah.
Enough of that.
So I just want to tell everybody just a little background here. This podcast would not exist if it wasn't for our dear husbands.
For sure.
Because they knew each other first and we became friends because they were friends. And in fact, we met years ago at a party at your house, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But I don't
work party.
remember much about that. But I do remember we went out to, what was it, the Timeout Bar and Grill in
Yeah.
Federal Way,
Mhm.
literally like weeks before COVID hit.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like 3 weeks.
And I
maybe.
think that's where you and I really started to gel.
Yeah, yeah. And then we started planning. We were planning to take our husbands to Ireland for their birthday that summer,
That's
darn it.
right. That's right. Yeah. So that is why we became friends and this podcast exists, is because our husbands are like brothers from another mother.
Absolutely.
We are going to bring this back to topic. So today we are talking about the movie Singles, released in 1992, specifically September 18th,
Wow.
1992. It was directed and written by Cameron Crowe, who also directed
One of my favorite movies, Almost Famous.
Almost Famous, yeah,
Mhm.
with Kirsten Dunst. Kirsten Dunst?
No.
No?
Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson. I get them confused.
What? Okay. I like
Sorry.
them both, but
What else did Cameron Crowe do? You're looking at me like
he wrote Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
he did?
wow. He must have
Yeah.
been a child.
So that's one of his things. He always kind of captures a moment in time based on where he is in his life.
Oh.
Oh,
Then he
that's
was a
very
child.
Interesting.
This is
Pretty
why we
much.
have you
Yeah,
here.
teenager. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I knew Almost Famous was like semi-autobiographical, but not.
Biographical.
Viagra. Now I don't know how to say it. Now you guys have both said it wrong so many times.
I am famous for making up words.
Yes, you are. Rabbit holing is now a verb, thanks to
Yes.
Jody. All right. So this was the synopsis that I read online in production notes. Steve is so tired of all the games and complications that he's decided to completely swear off love until he meets ellipsis Linda, for whom passion and trust have always been mutually exclusive. Cliff thinks a committed relationship would slow down his less than meteoric.
Ochre.
No, meteoric. Like
Oh.
less than meteoric.
He sucks.
He sucks.
Oh, meteors. Meteors.
Yes, rise to
Ah.
rock and roll stardom. But starry-eyed Janet is willing to do anything to win his attention until Dr. Jameson convinces her she shouldn't change a thing. Meanwhile, Debbie is convinced that a full fashion overhaul and a dynamite videotape is all that she needs to catch Mr. Right. Bailey doesn't care that he has no special lady. He'll always be around to give others advice on love. Bailey is a throwaway character.
Well, I was going to say, what?
That
Who's
was the
Bailey?
maitre d' one. Right?
Oh, that
was the
it-
guy with the hat and the
Oh.
Rich's coat.
They never fleshed him out.
No, he was an extra. Anyway, so this movie has an amazing soundtrack. We all agree, yes.
Mhm.
It's fun that we are all Pacific Northwest lovers or grew up here. And so there's a lot of iconic scenery in that. But other than that, I don't know. What do you
The music really, really is the driver behind this,
Yeah.
which I've learned from my experts here wasn't how that whole movie got started or what they thought they were making. They were making a movie, and it turns out all these famous people that all these bands hit about the same time as this came out. So these bands that are in it weren't famous during filming.
Yeah, they were just starting their rise to fame.
So tell me this, guys, if these guys hadn't made it famous already or hadn't hit, as we've been saying, how did Cameron Crowe know to have them in their movie or in his movie?
Well, Heart is one of the big original ones from up here. That
Sure.
everybody
They're not
knows.
grunge, right? Yeah.
They're not even like, most people don't even really think about them being, well, they're from Bellevue, but most people don't think about them from being around here. And Cameron Crowe is married to Nancy Wilson.
Mhm.
And that's why he knew the whole music scene and everything going on up at the
Okay.
time.
So he knew what was cooking.
Right. He happened to be here because he was married to Nancy Wilson and fell in love with Seattle.
Yeah, he moved up here in the late 80s.
Yeah.
So this movie was originally supposed to be set in Phoenix, Arizona.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there a scene there, a music scene there that he would have been?
I don't think so.
From what I've read, and I'm no expert on this, it was
Yes, you
supposed to
are.
be about a group of single 20-somethings. And then, after the death of Andrew Wood,
Mm-hmm.
he watched the Seattle music scene come together and support each other.
And who was Andrew Wood?
The lead singer, Mother Love Bone.
Okay.
Who's really they're pretty much the father of grunge.
Father
along
of
with
grunge,
the
okay.
Melvins and all that. But they were the first band that was actually going to break, but he
Okay.
OD'd.
Yeah. And two of the
And they were
members,
over at that point after he died.
Well, of
No.
course.
Well,
Okay.
it's not.
Well, I mean, other bands have gone on after their lead singer dies. I mean, look at Alice in Chains.
Well,
but-
no, I mean,
But
that's
to
just
no
a-
commercial success.
Oh, Mother Love Bone?
Right.
Well, I mean, it just became Pearl Jam. I mean, for the most
Were
part.
members of Pearl Jam in Mother Love Bone?
2 of the members were.
Which ones?
Stone and Jeff, the bass player, and
Stone
the
Gossard
rhythm
and Jeff Ament.
guitarist.
Oh, okay.
But they were kind of most of the driving force behind that band, too, besides Wood.
So in this movie, we see Eddie Vedder, but they are not Pearl Jam yet?
They are, but nobody knows who they are yet.
But they're not called Pearl Jam yet.
No, they're called, what was it?
Mookie Blaylock.
Yeah, they were called Mookie Blaylock or whatever the hell it
They
was.
came up some really weird
You guys
names
don't
back in
remember
the
who
day.
that was?
Who
No.
was Mookie Blaylock?
He was an NBA player.
Oh, right. I heard you guys talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
So basically, when this whole movie was being filmed, a lot of the bands whose music ended up in this movie weren't famous yet.
Right.
Yet they contributed music to it. And from what I understand, after production, continued sending music in. So some of the songs that became mainstays of this movie weren't originally part of it.
They weren't even recorded when they filmed the movie.
That's what I understand.
And one of the stories is that Chris Cornell, like Spoon Man, there's a few songs off this. He made this fake tape. He was in on it with Nancy Wilson. Like they made this tape. Like this was really a band, and they were screwing with Cameron about it. Him and his wife, Chris Cornell and Nancy Wilson, were screwing with Cameron about this, and it was a made up tape. It ended up some of the songs on that tape ended up being on future albums of these bands.
What do you mean they were screwing with him? Like just fake songs? Or
Yeah, they made a made up band. He
made up
the
music.
movie.
Gotcha.
He just made a made up band, and he put this
With fake song titles.
Yeah, with fake song, but he actually made music to the fake song
so like
titles.
Spoon Man was one of the song
Right.
titles,
Got
and
it.
then Chris Cornell and Soundgarden went and made Spoon Man out because of the fake name on this. Yeah,
So
But
kind
the
of
Spoon Man was
a real Seattle person.
Yeah.
yeah.
It was all real, but it started out as a joke from Nancy Wilson with Chris Cornell, and she brought him in on it. And the whole thing actually started out as it was just a practical
wow.
joke.
So, and some of like Smashing Pumpkins was suggested to Cameron Crowe from Chris Cornell. He was like, you should look into this band, Smashing Pumpkins. And so he contacted Billy Corgan and said, do you have any new songs you can send us? And so he sent him like 4 new songs, including Drown, which is on the Drown, right? That's the big song of Smashing Pumpkins on there. You're looking at me. Yeah. And so but it was before Drown had even been released. So when it appeared in the movie.
Got it.
So yeah.
That's fascinating to me that they
That's weird.
captured all those people who were going to become famous, but before they did, before they really launched, managed to get all those people in there. I mean, there's so many, like, what was it? Somebody carrying down furniture in the movie as a band member or a member of some band, right? Like there's extras throughout this whole movie that were actually band members.
Oh, yeah.
Jump in, Rich, when you know something.
I don't.
You said something about who
That's
they were.
just something I read.
Oh, well, you can say what you read. It doesn't matter where nobody's taking this to
Nobody's
go and do their
gonna grade us.
college thesis.
And all the people we're talking about have already died from ODs
Right.
and suicide. So there's
I just think it's really interesting because he captured this moment in time in Seattle
yes,
before the Seattle explosion hit.
That
yeah, it was right when it was
all these
starting.
people were just people he knew who would then later became famous, yet they were all part of a circle that inspired him to rewrite this story as a Seattle story.
as
It
opposed to
wasn't
Phoenix. Who knows what the scene was in Phoenix?
Yeah, and it wasn't a movie about grunge or Pearl Jam coming to life or Soundgarden or anything else. It just happened to
be the backdrop.
showcase, some
Sure.
of these.
It almost
groups
became a
that became.
character of the movie. Was
absolutely, that's what I was thinking.
Seattle and the grunge scene became another character.
Because, I mean, to be honest with you, if you just went with the story, like I would be embarrassed to tell
Sure.
anybody I
Yeah,
liked
it's-
it.
It's another rom-com.
Yeah.
Is kind of what it comes
Yeah.
off, but it captured the Seattle.
So I wrote a
Sound.
little my thoughts about the movie real quick. I thought I'd hit and then we can kind of go around, but I wrote a little. It's my book report. So Singles is
Your Cliff Notes?
my Cliff Notes. Yes. So this is kind of my thoughts. If I were writing a review of the movie, this is what I would say. So I'm what were the big review guys?
Siskel and Ebert.
Siskel and Ebert. So I give this a thumb sideways. All right.
Thumbs
think
up
that
for
was
the
a choice.
the thumbs up for the music and the city.
Yeah, and then
and the actors. I mean, they were.
I'm curious to drink.
The story itself was the thumbs down. So everything brings it to the middle.
Right. So Singles is a romantic comedy that served as director-writer Cameron Crowe's love letter to the city. It is also a cultural snapshot of the time, as you've said. This was the reign of Generation X, and grunge was starting to become into full swing. The movie highlights the music, fashion, and attitudes of the time, and might be the most Seattle movie ever made, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Although it doesn't have much of a plot and tends to wonder at times, the soundtrack, locations, and cameos made it a cult favorite for Gen X. The movie portrays the struggles through relationships of a tight-knit group of 20-something singles, set in many iconic locations in Seattle, such as Pike Market, the Moore Theater, and Gasworks Park. Seattle is almost a character in itself. The movie is also a time capsule of the 90s with the fashion, hair, technology, and attitudes. Unfortunately, the movie doesn't hold up well if you take away the great soundtrack, iconic scenery, and Gen X nostalgia. The characters are fairly boring to downright unlikable. Cliff is a self-obsessed loser who has an overinflated sense of his own talent and importance, is a womanizer, and treats his needy girlfriend like shit. Janet, the girlfriend, is insecure, clingy, and all too willing to radically change herself for a guy who clearly doesn't give a shit about her. The rest of the characters play more as disillusioned 40-somethings rather than the young adults they are meant to be. The movie wants to be a grunge movie, but plops the preppiest characters right down into the music scene and rock clubs where they feel out of place. The romance feels strained and desperate in this movie, but for Gen X, all can be forgiven for the iconic soundtrack and cameos of local Seattle bands that made the grunge scene what it was. Does that kind of wrap it up? Sum it up fairly good?
That's a great review, Shay.
So I disagree on so many points.
Okay, tell me, please.
So, of course, I'm Shay's husband. So, of course, we disagree on some of this.
That's fine.
But I was also 21 when this came out. I wasn't 13.
Yeah.
So, no, I think it portrayed a decent picture of dating. I feel like before the time where everything was texting and swiping and all that, it's how you met somebody. Okay. You went to a bar, maybe you bought somebody a drink, maybe you or one of your goofy buddies used a pickup line. You had to be able to walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, my name's Rich. How are you tonight?" And that doesn't exist today. Mm-hmm. So to me, it captured that time. And even though I wasn't in Seattle, it's kind of how things work. So, okay, maybe not the greatest movie in the world as far as script or whatnot, but the story it told, I thought, did a great job.
That's fair. I agree with that part. Yeah.
I can see that. When my impression when I watched it was exactly the opposite of that, because I have the opposite experience. Yeah. As I got married 4 months before I graduated high school. Keith and I have never dated as adults. I had nothing in common with that part of the movie, but I related very much with the Seattle part. I thought they did a really good job of portraying Seattle. We even talked about it during the movie, not having it pour down rain every single day. That's what movies like to do for Seattle, but also it was gray, which it is. It's gray a lot if it's not raining.
And when it's gray out, you're drinking coffee, which is Seattle.
Seattle, yes, exactly. They did a good job with that.
As cliche as that might be.
And the outfits, they were very Seattle at that time. I feel, we were in Hawaii when this movie came out. We lived in Hawaii for 3 years, from 93 to 6. So we were missing for part of this as far as the Seattle scene. But
I would say that we were here at the same time that movie was being made, where it was becoming a scene, and we left right as the scene exploded.
Right.
So we weren't here for the commercial part of it. We were here for just hey, did you see Jeff down at blah, blah, blah? I can't believe he's doing that. Or, it would just be everything was word of mouth and talking and hey, did you hear who so-and-so's brothers? No, I didn't know that, that kind of thing.
But being
when that movie came out.
But you went to shows.
Oh, yeah.
I did that whole thing. Regardless of whether or not you guys were actively dating, it's the type of stuff that people did.
Yeah. We also had little kids, so we didn't go to a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, but in high school, which wasn't long before that movie, it's dark and dreary definitely. Out. You get together with friends, maybe you drink, maybe you have coffee, and you have a good time indoors, because outside it's gray and miserable.
Yep.
And I thought that movie did a great job capturing that.
It
does get beautiful here in Seattle, one of the most beautiful places in the world for summer, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
but that movie captured the grayness that is Seattle during
but the
non-summer.
The fashion and stuff, the music and the fashion when we were in Hawaii was not as, I mean, it wasn't there. That type of stuff
it was
there.
flannels and Doc Martens here in Seattle, and you're not doing that in Hawaii. You're
Right. It was definitely
board shorts,
very
right?
Seattle-centric.
There's
Very
something
Seattle-centric.
nobody's really talking about either, which is also, I think, kind of funny that always gets overlooked in the same time frame, is the emergence of new country was like exploding at the exact same time. So you were either at the Riverside Inn in Tukwila line dancing like you think you
like Garth Brooks and that sort of.
With your flat cowboy hats, and she's from an old farm family, so please don't ever dress like a cowboy in front of her family.
So I was going to say the same thing, Keith, because in Orange County we had the Cowboy Boogie.
Yeah.
And everybody was doing, that was a club. Everybody was going there. Garth Brooks was huge. No Doubt was coming out.
Sublime.
Yeah. So we had the Orange County scene that was nothing like the Seattle scene.
Right.
What's the other one? Mark.
Sugar Ray? No.
Sugar Ray.
Yeah,
I was a Sugar Ray
Smash
fan.
Mouth.
I was a Sugar Ray fan.
And you still had rap going on, and you still had hair metal. And then all of a sudden you had what ended up being called grunge. At that time, we just called it alternative music.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right.
Played on stations like K-Rock, which is huge in Southern
99.
California.
Oh, I know that was 107.7, right? K.
106.7.
Oh,
Yeah.
107.7 was up here.
KROQ.
That's the religious. Oh no, that was the end. That
Yeah.
was the end.
The end. Okay, I got all that.
But yeah, country became super big at that time too, and actually Southern California swing. got
Oh yeah,
really
Cherry
big.
Poppin' Daddies and
Really?
Oh, I forgot
Wow.
about that. Yeah,
I
that
don't
was
recall
So
that.
there was
movement.
that whole movement as well. So, but that's the super interesting thing to me about that movie is it captured what was going on here.
Yeah.
And
sure.
it wasn't a movie about that, but in hindsight, people kind of go, "Oh, that grunge movie."
Right.
Right.
And it probably introduced a lot of people to grunge, though. And I mean, even Seattle in general. I mean, we're talking 1992, where not everybody had a computer. Internet was still rudimentary, and it took 15 minutes to download one picture. So
And you had to use a phone line.
Sure, and nobody else could use the phone while you were doing it.
Right.
Yeah,
That's one thing I noticed
If your
in the
parents
movie.
walked in, you had to close the
Right?
screen.
So people didn't really have much of an idea of what Seattle was or what it was like, and so this movie probably introduced people, I mean, on the West Coast especially, or East Coast especially, and around the world to Seattle, and then yes, grunge for the first time for sure. Hey friends, Shea here. So this recording turned into a 2.5 hour meaty boy, and we didn't want to subject you to that long of an episode. So you can listen to our scene by scene recap of the movie next week. For now, you can hear the rest of our conversation about the movie and some fun facts. Also, wanted to take a moment to apologize for some of the noises and the sound quality. The husbands didn't quite grasp the concept of speaking into the microphone, or the fact that the microphones pick up every little noise they make as they fidget around in their chairs like toddlers, but we still love them. And we love you. Thanks so much. And now that we have gone through it scene by scene, are you guys finally bored by the movie?
I'm
No,
actually less
I thought it
bored
was
by
great.
it. I'm less bored by it. When I watched it by myself, I was not connecting with it. I'm not a huge grunge fan.
Music will never be better,
Than grunge.
ever.
Yeah, Rich is definitely his
Yeah.
musical taste in the 90s, and then but he has come into the current age a little bit because he's a Swiftie.
Oh well,
God.
I
He
mean
loves Tay-Tay.
that's just a thing though. Look, Rich.
Rich loves Tay-Tay. I am saying it here.
Do you get your glow stick out? Do you get your glow stick out at night and just dance on your deck? You're just
That's all he listens to
Very
anymore.
talented
is,
songwriter.
And a
She
beautiful
is.
human being.
She
Beautiful
just
human
seems
being.
very sweet.
Mhm.
I do want to point out she is not part of the Kansas City Chiefs. I'd like that really
I
pointed
thought she
out.
was the mascot.
I thought she was the coach. I didn't know.
So, Rich, do you have
She
any?
sells a lot of jerseys.
She does.
She does. Do you have any fun facts about the movie?
Can you imagine what's going to happen if at some point it's Taylor Kelsey?
She's not going to change her
She
name
won't
because that's her
change-
professional name. No.
She'll privately be Kelsey.
Yeah.
Swift -Kelsey.
Yeah, there you go.
She won't ever change it. Do you have any fun facts?
I hope it doesn't
I want
happen.
you to give the fun fact about how this was supposed to be a sitcom.
So,
That changed my whole
we
view
want
of
some
this
fun
show.
facts. Give us some fun facts.
here's the thing I've been thinking about listening to all this, having just watched the movie and then talk about it. All these parts that were left out could have each been a half-hour show
Yeah.
for all the little details you
yeah.
guys keep talking about that are
Yeah.
missing. And I think Cameron Crowe's immensely talented. And from what I've read, he was approached by Warner Brothers TV, who came to him and said, "Hey, can you turn this into a sitcom?" And of course, Warner Brothers was the company that made this movie. He ultimately declined, and 2 years later, Warner Brothers Television came out with a show called Friends, which was crazy popular and basically about 6 single people looking for love in the city of New York. So when you think about it, very similar, this whole idea of these single people who are a group of friends looking for
Meeting at a coffee shop.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
look-
It was definitely taken directly from this movie.
Really missed out on the music piece, except for that I'll be there.
Okay,
for
so again,
you.
you've got the music piece there.
Mhm.
So I guess there were enough similarities where supposedly Cameron Crowe's camp looked into, is this a ripoff? Is there a lawsuit here? And ultimately they decided not to proceed that way. But, you think about all these parts that were missing and how it had happened. Well,
They made a 10-year sitcom out of it.
Yeah, amazingly popular and fantastic writing and all the rest of it. So
To this day.
yeah.
I mean, I think it's been 20 years since it.
Oh, no. It's been almost 30 years.
20 years since Friends has been off the air.
Oh.
And very,
Off
very
the
popular.
air. Yeah, I thought you meant since. Sorry, I was not listening apparently.
Well, I didn't finish.
So yeah, I think to try to take the story about 6 different people and put it into a movie that's less than 2 hours is incredibly difficult.
Well, that's true. I never thought of it that way.
It would have worked better as a series, but that wasn't the thing back then like it is now, whereas series are made
They're very
for
different.
everything.
Mhm.
And it's kind of nice because then you can explore a topic or a character or whatever. And I like how they're doing that these days with taking a character from a movie. Like, for instance, Rich and I watched Wednesday, which is taken off of the Addams Family, and it was amazing.
Was it? I've
It was
been thinking
so
about it.
good. We have been waiting. The writer's strike set everything back, of course. So we have just been waiting for that second season to drop because that is
I've
so
heard it's pretty
good.
good.
It's so
Mhm.
good. It's so good.
But I thought the chemistry of the actors in Singles was really good too.
Yeah.
And similar to that of Friends. I think
Right.
Friends with a different group of people might not have worked.
No, when you
Yeah.
said it, they wanted to make a sitcom, and Cameron Crowe ultimately declined, and Keith goes, "Well, that would have been a stupid sitcom."
Yeah,
And then you go, "But they made one, and it's called Friends." And I was like, "Oh,
I did-
dang!" It changed my whole view of the movie. Like,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, apparently
absolutely.
Cameron Crowe's mom would be like, if you had just not turned them down, we'd be living in a palace right now.
I'm sure she is. He's done well despite
He's
his
done
miss on
fine.
Friends.
How many millions do you
But
need?
maybe if they had done it that way, it wouldn't have been as amazing, though, too. Like, Friends is a unique situation. They accidentally got all these 6 actors together to play these characters that seemed to fit them very well. And there was a lot of movement in there, right? Not everybody was hired for the character they ultimately played because they discovered later that they'd be better at a different character. And those relationships, maybe if you'd taken it directly from Singles rather than kind of just the idea of Singles, maybe it wouldn't have been as great either.
But I also think, as somebody who worked in a restaurant during his 20s, going to college with a big group of friends where everybody kind of dated everybody within that friend group,
Yeah.
Friends also captured a time. And I don't know anything about New York City, but they captured the time and the feeling of, okay, I'm in my 20s, I'm working this menial job, but I'm looking for something bigger. I'm trying to figure out who I am, and I'm trying to find somebody to share my life with. And I think that this movie did the same thing, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On
I
the other
mean,
coast.
So, speaking of people not playing their original roles, Matt Dillon was actually originally asked to play the role of Steve, but he turned it down to play Cliff.
He requested Cliff?
Yeah, apparently.
He
And
looked like he was having a ton of fun being Cliff.
Yeah. And I think Rich said that
It's a great clip.
Pearl Jam said that something about seems like he fit into the band perfectly except for having no talent.
Yeah. He looked like them, dressed like them, and yeah.
Exactly. Well, because it was based on Jeff Ament. Like, he wrote all of the fake songs for Citizen Dick. It was his wardrobe. It was his apartment that was based on his apartment. So it's basically like Jeff Ament, but just no talent.
Right. Exactly.
And then another person who turned down the role of Steve Dunn was Johnny Depp. Apparently what he said was, I can't say I love you on screen just yet, which whatever that means.
Right.
And then
I'm not old enough. I'm not mature. What does that mean?
Exactly. I don't know.
I haven't said it in real life to a woman. I can't say it in fake life.
Yeah. It's Johnny Depp. Does anything this guy say make
Makes
any
sense? No. And then the role of Linda Powell, Kira Sedgwick was actually the fifth choice. So it was written for Jennifer Jason Lee. Jennifer Jason Lee. Who else did she?
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, okay. Also was asked Jodie Foster, Mary Stuart Masterton, and Robin Wright Penn, which I don't know that last one.
What?
Robin Wright Penn.
Sean Penn's ex-wife.
Well, that also doesn't help.
I feel
give me a movie.
She's in
Forrest Gump. She was
Jenny.
Oh, she was Jenny.
Yeah.
Okay, no, all right, that makes sense.
I do know what love is, Jenny.
Oh yeah. I was like, who's Jen High?
So honestly, I think we've gone through all of the fun facts during our recap. I don't think there's anything else in here that we're missing.
What I will
Unless
say,
you have anything. Do you have anything else we didn't cover?
I'd like to add that if you'd like to learn more about what really happened, there's an excellent couple of articles in Rolling Stone that Cameron Crowe penned, including parts of his diary that he was writing during the filming of this that gives you kind of some insights to what the trial and tribulations of a filmmaker were making that type of movie at the time. Because again, in retrospect, it's a movie about the grunge movement in Seattle, but it had nothing to do with that.
That was just where it was located at the time.
Right. So his thoughts, and I guess he and a couple of the actors, or one of the main actors, got into it quite a bit, and all those challenges that making a movie.
Well, I heard Matt Dillon was a little bit challenging to work with. Like, he would get upset.
Campbell Scott, that was his main one.
Oh yeah, I heard he also would get upset when a scene didn't go right and go out and hit the wall. Or was that Matt Dillon?
I think that was Matt Dillon.
Yeah, Matt Dillon would go out and hit the wall, and
yet he's
like,
still
you're playing
pulled
this like
off.
stoner dude.
Yeah, right. He still pulled that off, and then what we don't see is he's having a tantrum, punching walls.
I don't know. Campbell Scott, I can't think of anything else he's been in. I know that he also is a voice actor because he did the audiobook for the Stephen King novel Cell. And that's where his voice really, I just hear him saying the lines from Cell, which I love that. I love that story. So that's where I get him from. And Matt Dillon, like I was saying, I just remember from Wild Things. And I honestly can't place anybody else in any other movie at this point.
Well, at the
I've
time,
seen him, but I just don't remember.
He was doing a movie with Julia Roberts called Dying Young. So
I don't think I've seen that.
His image was not what they were expecting, and you can read about that on.
Oh, because of the short hair and
he was thin and pale, and
I think he was a leukemia patient.
Okay.
Quite different.
Okay, interesting. Well, anybody else have anything else to add?
I feel like I want to thank Keith and Rich for joining us for this, not just the podcast, but watching it with us, because I watched that movie a couple times and I did not enjoy it like I enjoyed it now that I have the history, the background, and the passion for the music behind it. So
it was fun.
For making this movie less or more enjoyable for me.
Before we go, real quick, let's just talk about box office real quick. So the budget was just around $9 million, and it grossed only $18,471,000. It made about $4,000 opening weekend. And other movies that were released the same date, September 18th, 1992, was Captain Ron. That was number one that weekend.
Oh my God.
Remember Captain Ron?
I do.
Wasn't that Kurt Russell, right?
Yes.
School Ties. I don't remember that one.
Was,
Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser. It was a pretty good movie. It was not a comedy.
Husbands and Wives. Don't remember. Serafina. That was a Disney movie. South Central.
I remember that.
But Sneakers had been released the weekend before, and that was still number one. Sneakers made about $51 million.
That was Tom Hanks, wasn't it?
No, Sneakers was
River Phoenix?
No.
Well, my question
literally,
is,
Sam, I loved it. What
does $9 million buy you today? Like 10 minutes of a movie?
Maybe.
Well, I mean,
9
what would that be
million.
adjusted
9 million might
for?
secure the location.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And then to think that a movie like that doubled that 9 million seems pretty good.
Oh, Robert. Oh, it's the Robert. Yeah, River
Robert
Phoenix
Redford, that's
yeah,
right.
River Phoenix was in it, though.
Oh, River Phoenix, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I love that movie. That was a really good movie. That was a fun movie to watch.
It had to do with the fact they called it sneakers because that's how they move the floppy disk back and forth, right? Am I thinking of the right movie?
No, they were just sneaky.
I think it was because they were sneaking alcohol into the movie theater.
No.
No.
Or
Yeah.
candy.
No, the guys that would run like the floppy disk from one guy to another guy were called sneakers. That was sneaker.
I thought those were called bootleggers.
No.
Bootleggers had to do with alcohol.
Yeah.
Boots, sneakers, get it.
Well, think about this. $9 million in 1992 is the same buying power as $20 million today. It's still not making
Movies.
much of a movie.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a low budget movie.
Budget.
Yeah, when we're talking about these budgets that are like $100 million, which, hey, if we could just make like 2 less $100 million movies a year, we could cure a lot of major problems around the world.
But now
I'm
you
not
have
saying
artists
what's wrong.
releasing albums on budgets off of their Apple iPhone.
Right.
Are you allowed to say Apple iPhone on here?
We can say whatever we want, I think. We can swear. We can plagiarize.
We
we-
cannot play music.
Oh, yeah. Just can't play music.
We can't violate copyright laws. All
Can't
right,
afford that?
Yeah, no, we cannot afford to violate copyright laws unless we're doing it in the fair use.
Right, there are ways
Which
to
we
get
can
around
do.
that.
We could play clips of this
What
movie
if the
today because we're
microphone-
doing a review.
But what if the microphone just picked up music in the background? It
Well,
just happened to be on.
Then
in the
you
room.
just have to go through and cut it out. All right. Well, thank you so much, husbands.
Yes, thank you,
For-
husbands. This is I've been waiting for this. I've been so excited to
Yeah.
have them on our show because, I don't know, they're fun to hang out with.
Yeah, we should do this again. Maybe not a movie review
No, I think we
format
should do
because
a-
I think Rich was a little bored.
We need
Sorry,
to
babe.
go. We need to go to a brewery review or something.
Yeah, maybe but these two guys that aren't drinking that much
Oh, yeah.
anymore. Yeah, maybe not.
Well, we'll drink it
He
and tell
can't
you
drink
about
here.
it.
Oh, that's fun for them.
Or we could do a tour of strip clubs in Portland.
yeah.
Only if we can go to the one that has gluten-free lap dances.
Yeah. I bet
I'm in.
I could probably do like one flight one day. If I
One
really-
beer flight.
Yeah, if I really planned it out and took my
No,
medicine
if we
the
go
right time.
when we go to Hawaii together, we'll
Oh,
do
yeah.
something for that. Anyway,
So, what do we do? A rabbit hole from Northwest Hawaii, Kauai?
We should
No,
go,
because there's
remember,
a-
we should go to the brewery that's in Kauai.
Well, but how do we do a rabbit hole? It's a Pacific.
well,
Northwest.
because we can. There's
Odd
a big
location.
Hawaiian community here.
Absolutely. When we lived in Hawaii,
We
it
could
was
talk
very
to Brandon.
odd. They all came here, and I'm like,
They
when I
came
lived
here
there, they
or
they
Utah?
had all these families here, and I'm like, why would you go from Hawaii to Seattle? That seems weird.
That's how I'm making Japan relevant to the Pacific Northwest because of this Japanese community.
we'll
here.
have to
That'll
do
be
that.
next week's. All right. Well, let's wrap this thing up. All right. Well, thank you so much, husbands, Rich and Keith. We really appreciate you being here. We hope you had fun with us. It was fun having you.
I agree.
Yeah, it was good to be here.
We love you. It's awesome.
Hi, I love you.
Jody's not saying it. Apparently,
No, I
she
do. I
doesn't
love you.
say
I
it.
was waiting for. I was going around in the circle.
Oh,
It wasn't my
Rich
turn.
didn't say it back, so I guess it's not real.
And yes, I definitely love my husband.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. As always, please tell a friend and rate and review on Spotify podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, because that really helps other people find the show. We really would like to grow our audience. So please tell your friends, tell your family members, because right now it is all family members.
Spread the word.
Spread the words. I
We're-
did look at our analytics, and we have one listener in Nairobi. And we have like one listener in Wales, and we have 4% in Canada. 4% of our listeners live in Canada.
Well, and you have one new listener in Idaho.
Oh, is
Shout out to Stubbs.
Stubbs. Hi, Stubbs. He's listening. Hi. I've got one listener in Maryland. Hi, Kathleen. All right. Well, anyways, we're going to wrap this up. But yes, please subscribe as well so you can get our new episodes every time they drop on Wednesday mornings, 12:01 a.m. on Pacific time.
Yes, I've actually listened to them when I'm awake in the middle of the night.
Are you?
It's been past
Yeah.
midnight.
You're like, ooh, our new
Oh, you know what
episode's
happened
out. As always, you can email Jody at rainydayrabbitholes.com, and that is spelled G-O-G.
Nope.
Where did that come from?
I'm
That is
Jody.
spelled. Oh my God, that is spelled J-G.
Jody, do you know how to spell your name?
Jody.
Or you can email me at Shea at rainydayrabbitholes, and that's Z. No.
SHEA. SHEA.
Yes.
Shea.
everydayrabitholes.com. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much, and see you down the rabbit hole. No. Do not fart in the microphone.
Oh, no, he's just